as a designer, the biggest insecurity you have starting out is I can't make things that look good. Can I call myself a designer? In general, also understand the non-design parts of things, which is a little bit around how do you send a cold DM which actually works, right? This is something that you know, for example, your cold DM, you emailed me and it worked.
Abhinav Chikara, the man behind 10K Designers, has years of expertise in the field of UI UX design.
You should be able to get to the point where anything you look at online, so like let's say you come across an app, mentally you should be able to say, yeah, this is how I would design it.
If you're in college right now, get ready to gain invaluable knowledge, tips, and tricks from the best in the field.
I don't know a single founder who goes to college campuses to hire designers. They are just online. I'm in my lunch break, I'm scrolling, and I come across a good designer. I'm going to follow them, right? And that's not just true for designers, it's true for everybody.
I am Sanskar Goyal, and you're watching The Sanskar Show.
So let's go step by step, right? I'll slow down very much, right? No skipping steps.
Awesome. Abhinav, to begin the conversation, can you please tell me how did you make your first money with design?
The very first one was literally my skills. All I knew was the basics of Photoshop. And so the very first time I made money from design was, I think it was a project on Upwork. And I just signed up for Upwork. It had been a few weeks, got my profile approved. And this was maybe back in 2012 or 2013. And so I'm on Upwork just randomly spamming for like lowest difficulty projects. And I happened to get a project for a logo design for $20 for somebody who wanted to start a popcorn brand, right? And they wanted to create this premium branding, and it was called Hot
Yeah.
Corn or something like that. So that was my first project. It was literally just one PSD file. I'm like, okay, let's make a simple logo with text. Got paid for that, and since then I was like, okay, let's push this a little bit more. How much more can I
Right.
go? Yeah.
Awesome. So, from your experience, what do you feel is the better way for a freelancer to make money? Like for a designer to make money, sorry. Is it freelancing or is it working with a company as a full time designer?
I would say they're definitely both very attractive paths because when it comes to a company, of course, the biggest thing to look out for is how fast is the company growing? What kind of team do they have? Because at a company, your success is pretty much dependent on the success of the company, right? If the company ends up shutting down or doesn't go that crazy and never takes off, you could have the best work, but it's going to be used by very few people, seen by very few people, and so the likely impact you have is much lesser. But at the same time, going the freelance route for a lot of people can be very intimidating because now you have to go get your own
Yeah.
clients every month. You have to kind of repeat this, you have to build your leads and everything. And so some people would gladly take the risk of freelance and work their way up. Some people are on this side, but in general, right, to this question, what I've observed is most designers I know on a long enough time scale do end up trying both. When they
Great.
start out, typically they take whatever they can get. So if that's freelance, it's freelance. If it's internship, sure. But on a long enough time scale, everybody wants to try the other side. And then I think it at some point it does become a bit of a lifestyle question, which is
Okay.
working for a company with a great team sometimes requires you to relocate somewhere, and then that's your whole lifestyle is based on that. And sometimes the same thing happens with freelance too. Somebody says, hey, I just figured out finally how to get global clients. Now suddenly I'm making $10,000 for a website. Let's go to Bali,
Right.
right? And so a lot of people do lifestyle design eventually. But to answer the question, which is better, very personal, but I would definitely suggest everybody try both for sure.
If you could get a chance to go back and start learning about UI UX from zero in today's time, so how would you approach it with AI around and everything about new resources around? How would you approach learning about UI UX in today's time?
I think what I would do is definitely not limit myself to just learning UI UX, because in the end what it comes down to is if a company hires you as a product designer where you're working on the UI, you're working on the experience, they are still hiring you so that you can do this for the product and then the product gets built developers work on
Yeah.
it, and then it finally goes out, right? So just learning UI UX design, great option. But I would say, so somebody who really wants to go full on, what I would suggest is actually build products, like go the full way, right? And of course, this is not for everybody, right? Not everybody
Yeah.
can do this. Not everybody has the resources, time, or even the full understanding of, like, a product is not an easy thing to build, right? You have to think about hundreds of things. But definitely I have seen that designers who approach it from that way, where they're like, I actually want to take these skills and apply it towards a product, is good. So starting out today, if I was doing that, I would definitely try. So let's go step by step, right? I'll slow down very much, right? No skipping steps. First thing I would do, learn Figma, right? Because as a designer, the biggest insecurity you have starting out is, I can't make things that look good. Can I call myself a designer?
Yeah.
That's the biggest one, right? So most people take some time to get through that, but tackle it head on, right? Consume a lot of good work, right? Don't say, I'm not going to look at other people's work because it's too intimidating and I feel I don't even want to see it for that reason. See it for that reason, so that
Yeah.
when you're learning your tool, you try to start making those kind of things, even though they are outside your comfort zone, even though it's challenging. So, number one, tool, you should be able to get to the point where anything you look at online, so like let's say you come across an app, mentally you should be able to say, yeah, this is how I would design it, right? It's not that I have no idea how they made this happen. I know very clearly
Yeah.
this is how I would make it in Figma. So that's your basic pages and everything. But outside of that, I would say, even visual design to some extent, if you see something that looks good, you should be able to look at it and break down how exactly they made it, right? So for example, if I look at a nice, as a non designer, if I look at a poster, I might be like, yeah, it looks great, बढ़िया लग रहा है. But as a designer, I'm like, yeah, they use that gradient effect, the typography
Yeah.
here, they use this
Makes sense.
very specific serif or sans serif. If I had to do this, I would probably try this layout. That, like, you should be able to break it down. So that's step one. Figure out the tools. Once you know the tools, what do you make with them? So this is where I would suggest start making products, even if they're hypothetical products, right? Because a lot of times to build products,
Mm.
you will need, like, the more complex the product is, you do need engineers. You do need, to some extent, to actually build that, get your customers. So I would say, for designers, build conceptual projects, right? And what I mean by that is, come up with the concept, validate the concept, pretend like you're actually making the app, but just do the design. Because usually what happens is, when you go through this process, you're learning a lot of times is a good chunk of, actually building the product, when you're building this 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, just posting this online, you will meet somebody who's a developer, and they'll be like, I was thinking exactly about this, but my
Yeah. Yeah.
problem was, I can code, but I don't know how to come up with these ideas. So can we work on this together? Can we just do this as a side project and, work on this in our free time? That can happen. Or sometimes the exact same thing but slightly different, where a client reaches out and says, that's so cool, like, you applied this concept, you created this, we are working on something similar, it's not the same thing, but if you can do this, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do a good job on our thing. And then they offer you a freelance project, or they offer you a internship or a project, right? So I would say that's the approach. And the thing is, this particular thing that I just described, this is one of those things that can have infinite reps.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
learning the tool, applying it, going and seeing what can I make with it, putting it out, and repeating this. You could do it as many times as possible. And the secret in some ways is, you want to see how quick can you do this and how many times you can do this. Because by the time you reach the fifth time, you're going to be like, oh wait, like, I'm really understanding this UI UX thing. By the time you are between fifth and 10th, you are like, wait, how do other designers do it? Like, is there something that I am doing wrong, that I just didn't bother to figure out because I'm so early? And that's when you start thinking about process. You start thinking about, how
Right.
do I convey my ideas? You start thinking about, how do I prevent getting stuck in these usual places? So that would be my suggestion.
And what do you think will be the impact of AI on UI UX, or rather, what has been the changes
Hmm.
in your workflow so far due to AI?
I think I can definitely talk positives and negatives both. Uh, positives is that I can now do a lot more by myself.
Hmm.
And I can give you some more examples, right? Not just for myself. Um, I know designers today who are starting out who would have said, I don't know how to make visuals like graphics, illustrations, like I can make a UI, but then the graphics or something that I put
Right.
there, I don't know how to do that. I don't know Illustrator, I don't know Photoshop. Today, most of them don't even have this doubt anymore because from day one they're using Mid Journey, right? So they know
Right.
that anything I need to make, that import the hard part is probably not the actually making it, but figuring out what to make, right?
Exactly. Right.
Because you have to actually make the prompt. So the positive that I've noticed is a lot more designers are now realizing, wait, I can do multiple things like this. And you could have always done this even without AI, but it's just that per skill to get good at it, it takes time, right? So stacking on these
Right.
multiple skills would have taken you a couple of years. Now it's possible in a couple of months, a couple of weeks, in fact, if you're all in, right? So that's definitely a positive I've observed. Designers are going way beyond their own zone. Like designers can now experiment with 3D without being a 3D designer. They
Yeah.
can do all in visuals, right? So the quality of ideas, like your creativity, the source of creativity that you know gets you to start making
Yeah.
this, I think that becomes the more important thing. So definitely positive. On the negative end, I have observed that it's created more confusion, way more confusion, right? In fact, it's created more confusion than there should be, in the
Hmm.
sense that
Interesting.
with AI right now, right? Especially given how our media and social media works, everything is algorithmic. You've got these feeds.
Yeah.
There is alpha in saying, here's a new thing, here's a new thing. And ever since ChatGPT launched, it's been abused by creators. Like now it's like, even if it's a concept, people make reels about it saying, here's the next AI tool that can do. And
Yeah.
you see this tens of times, hundreds of times, sometimes in a day in your feed. And the point is, all these tools don't actually exist, right? A lot of these are ideas, demos that people are making. But to somebody who's outside, this has created a lot of confusion. So, definitely on the negative end, if you don't know, um, if you don't know how to go down your own path, or if you don't have enough blockers like this to like not get
Right.
distracted, it can really pull you down. And honestly, most people would have expected me to say the negative is that it takes away jobs and stuff. But honestly, I would say it does take away jobs for people who are average, right? So
Right.
that's definitely the negative. But I would say most people who are getting scared about it have no right to be scared, right? Most people who are scared because they're like, I don't know what I don't know. Like,
Right.
I actually don't know at all what it might be. And the thing is, it's the fact that it's AI. It's too close to science fiction.
Yeah.
So fiction has no boundaries. It could go all in, right? And fiction is invented. So to have that, which with a real field like this, which touches everything else, design, development, marketing, copywriting,
Right.
everything, it's a scary time to be alive. So I would definitely suggest people kind of try to develop these like blinders, where that every once in a while I just have to run, bro. I just have to run. Like
Right.
stop looking around, just run, because that typically that momentum, very useful. And I don't think jobs are going away, mostly because like having grown up where UI UX design was not a job. When I was in
Okay.
college,
Right.
I was telling you about the first project. The reason I did
Yeah.
logo design was UI UX design did not exist at that time. The iPhone had just come out.
Right.
People did not know exactly. There were fart apps and few big ones, but it was all web design. There was no UI UX design. So the fact that a
Right.
field like that grew over the last decade, and today everybody wants to learn UI and UX
Yeah.
design, I think there'll be a lot more new roles created in a very similar way. So as long as the existential risk of AI actually upsetting our social systems, defense systems, uh, calamity, like that negative part definitely is a concern. But as long as doom doesn't happen, I think we have a lot of good technology, and it's only going to get better.
True.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a beginner. Let's say he's doing UI UX for the past 6 months. So now, what should be their step to make their sort of first money from UI UX, and like how can they sort of make sure that they make it a sustainable career for themselves?
I would definitely suggest that after you've learned the skills, the next step is definitely making money from it. Uh, I think this is not very obvious, especially to folks who are still in college, because you always have the option of, I don't need to make money right now. Like, अभी मेरे 2-3
Right.
साल बचे हुए हैं, मैं करके बाद में भी कर
Mm,
सकता हूँ. Right? But that बाद में भी कर सकता हूँ is a टाल रहे हो. मतलब, you're not actually taking action.
right.
Right? And so I would definitely, and that's okay, by the way, right? Some people want to do that. Take it at your own pace. That's totally fine. But very quickly, you have to realize it's not about the skill, it's about what you do with the skill. Because
Right. True.
in today's age, it's almost like there's new skills as well coming up every day, right? Like, who knew prompt engineering would become a skill?
Exactly. Exactly.
So if you don't take action on the skills you already have, you feel way more insecure about these other things because you're like, shit, like, वो तो मैंने सीख लिया, पर मैंने उसके बारे में कुछ किया नहीं, और अब ये नई स्किल आ रही है, ये भी मुझे सीखनी पड़ेगी, बट लाइक
Right.
मेरी पुरानी वाली बची, उसके बारे में मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, राइट? एंड आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हैव दिस विथ, they started video editing, they started motion graphics, they started 3D, they've done some websites, they've done all this stuff, but then they're in this skill wala phase.
Right.
Moving away from that, uh, I do have a longer video on the channel if somebody wants to watch that. But in general, I would definitely suggest um, freelance and internships are definitely the way to get started. And freelance is a very, let's just say, it's scary for people because you don't know, like, oh, I have to send an invoice. What's an
Yeah.
invoice? How do I make an invoice? और लाइक अगर कुछ गलत हो गया तो मैं क्या करूं, लाइक मैंने सोचा नहीं है उसके बारे में, राइट? लाइक इफ
Right.
समथिंग गोज रॉन्ग, लाइक shit, what can happen? It's very scary for most people. But in general, to simplify it, I would say when you have your work, you need to start getting into the habit of posting it online. Usually just this act of posting it online makes you realize that, wait, other people are noticing my work. Because if it's just sitting in your computer, nobody sees it, you don't make any progress. Just the act of something being online, people see it, they come to your profile, they read your bio, they probably give you a follow or something
Right.
like that. And that slowly keeps building up to the point where a freelance project, to simplify it for most people, is not even Upwork. Most people that I'm seeing today, if they have good work, once they eventually get to the point where they're confident to post, they
Right.
start posting
Exactly.
it online and they just get DMs. Because
True.
I don't know a single founder who goes to college campuses to hire designers. Nobody does that.
Right.
Oh, nobody does that. Like, nobody, not a single person I know has gone to college campuses to hire designers. They are just online. I'm in my lunch break, I'm scrolling, and I come across a good designer.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow them, right? And that's not just true for designers, it's true for everybody. You come across somebody interesting on the internet, and if you're running a startup or if you hire freelancers, your mindset is always, how do I build the best team, right?
Right.
Founders, when they are on Twitter, of course, a lot of them are using Twitter just like us for entertainment, but a lot of them are using this to figure out who might we want to work with.
Right.
Um, so I would definitely suggest start posting, start applying for roles online. In general, also understand the non-design parts of things, which is a little bit around how do you send a cold DM which actually works, right? This is something that for example, your cold DM, you emailed me and it worked. Right now,
Right.
that is
It
a
did.
now that's not design. It's not exactly copywriting, but it's somewhere in between, right? And people need to be doing things like that to convert. But that would be my suggestion, bro.